important that a hunter learn what to eat in his part of the world and know where that type of food is available.
Thanks for joining me this week on Deer Dirt. Normally I'm talking about deer habitat or possibly how to hunt the deer, how to scout a new area, those sorts of things. But we're going to take a little detour this week and we're going to look at buying land. If you looked at the title, you realize that I'm not talking about how to find your dream farm. You don't start out with your dream farm, and I'm going to tell you why. And I'm going to explain to you the steps that are involved in trying to find properties that have a lot of value. Value is the key. That's what we're looking for now. Early on in these stages, you're not buying your final product. You're buying the stepping stones. If you're talking about hunting land, which I'm most familiar with, value comes in several different forms. It can be just straight up underpriced land. And there's less of that available now. When I first started on my journey of land ownership, land was so cheap and the market was going up, steadily. You almost couldn't make a mistake. Just about everything was good value. But now it's tougher because there's so much more information available. The land gets picked over more, lots more people looking at it. People understand the investment better. So as a result of that, the number of just straight up underpriced properties is a lot less than it used to be. So you can still find those occasionally. I'm not saying that they're impossible to find, but a lot of times what you're looking for is value in the margins, the things that other people don't recognize. So is there something that this piece of land has to offer that other buyers aren't seeing? For example, maybe it's not that far outside of a town and the zoning requirements or the zoning of the property might be in the process of changing. It might be going from a rural to a residential area. So you might be able to see an uptick in value just in the short term, just by rezoning, for example. Stuff like that. You got to be more creative. Possibly it's an old rundown pasture farm that you can see the value in the soil quality. There's soil maps out there and you can find those, you can study those. You can determine if some of these pasture acres can be farmed and if they can be productive. So maybe you convert the old pasture farm into a tillable farm and you found value there. Possibly there are some trees on here that the seller and the other buyers haven't given full value to. And that's become more and more rare. That was more common a long time ago and people didn't understand the value of trees. But now people understand what these things are worth. But every once in a while, you can find a property that's undervalued because the quality of the timber is better than what the seller or the seller's agent understands. Sometimes it's in a good neighborhood for hunting, but it doesn't have any food plots, or it's just run down, or there's an old, beat up cabin on the place that needs a lot of work to get fixed up, or maybe even has to be removed. You can see those things as adding value. Say, okay, I just got to do some work here. I got to plant some food plots. I've got to, do some work on this property, but it's in a good area. I should be able to fix this up and turn it into something more valuable. So again, that's what you're after. Creating value, finding undervalued properties. And why am I emphasizing that so much? I'm sure you're thinking, why don't we just go buy something that is awesome hunting and be done with it? It's too hard to do that now. It's too hard unless you've got a lot of money. Land is so expensive now that you can't just jump into it and say, okay, I'm going to go pick the best property in the best neighborhood and I'm going to hunt this for the rest of my life. Unless you've got a lot of money, those opportunities aren't out there. They're too expensive. So you've got to build a snowball. You got to roll it down the hill. You got to make it bigger. you got to get this thing rolling. So that means you've got to find some undervalued properties, bring them up to value, sell them, roll the snowball a little bit bigger, find the next one a little bit more, maybe it's the next step up in acres, or maybe it's just a little bit more expensive property, but you see the opportunity there and you roll the snowball a little bit further down the hill, pick up some more snow. So little by little, after maybe 4 or 5 transactions, 3 or 4 transactions, you're at a point where you can think about looking for the dream property. So if you try to buy the dream farm too soon, the problem with that is you're not going to resell it. And if you don't resell it, then you don't get to realize the value, because recreational land, really, it's not an asset. It's not an investment unless you sell it. It's just a liability. And I know it sounds bad, but at the end of the day, you're not making any money on this. It's not like you bought commercial property and you're getting, rent from tenants or something like that. Normally, these really good hunting farms don't have much income. So as a result of that, you're not going to be able to start big. You shouldn't try to get to the end too quick, because you can, through a process of buying and selling these, you can work your way up to where you have a pretty nice sizable chunk. I mean, that's what I did. I didn't have very much income at all when I started. And just by finding properties that were undervalued, selling them, rolling it through a tax to, a 1031 tax exchange into another piece, increasing the value of that one, selling it, continuing to roll, I eventually ended up with some really nice property. But it took several years to do that. And that's why you don't want to land on your dream farm too soon, because like I said, you're not going to be willing to sell it. And you have to be willing to sell this stuff. Say you start with a 20-acre piece and you say, well, this is an awesome neighborhood, it's a great property. Are you going to be happy hunting 20 acres for the rest of your life? If so, then that's your dream farm. But most people are going to say, no, it's not quite big enough. I'm going to burn this place out in, just a few days of hunting it. So that's a good one to resell. Maybe somebody wants to build a cabin there, or whatever the case may be. You keep moving, getting bigger, growing, until you finally hit that size where, now you say, okay, this is sustainable. This is a piece of property that myself and my friends and family can hunt for the rest of my life. That's when you start looking for the dream property. That's when you say, okay, I'm not going to sell this next one. The next one is one that I'm going to keep. So anyway, that's what I'm encouraging you here is understand value, learn how to see value in the properties that you're looking at, and don't get to your end point. Don't get to your dream farm too soon. So let's talk more about value. The easiest way to do that, I think, is to look at tons and tons of listings online, see what they're selling for, see what certain neighborhoods, typically what the land sells for in certain areas, talk to a bunch of realtors, get yourself educated. It takes a lot of knowledge to be able to see something that's undervalued, because again, you're seeing something that probably most other people aren't seeing. So not only do you have to understand the land itself, how it can be changed, but also the neighborhoods that it exists in, all the different aspects of the soils, the potential next use of that property. So you have to understand who the next buyer is going to be. If you purchase it with the thought of bringing it up to value, you're bringing it up to value for who? So you need to understand every aspect of the market. So don't be quick. And it may take a few years of you just really studying this stuff, and with your full focus on understanding the land, the market, what can be done with the land, before you're comfortable enough to be able to step in and make your first purchase. I know there's a lot of meat on the bone that I didn't dig into, and maybe we can follow up again at some point and talk more about how to identify these types of properties. But the main thing, like I said, the main thing is you've got to learn. And the only way you're going to learn is to be excited about it, passionate about it, studying, asking questions, talking to people, but don't be in a hurry to buy, because you may not get to roll the dice very many times. Unless you got a lot of money again, you might only get one crack to get it started. And you want that ball to get rolling. You want that snowball to be rolling down the hill and picking up momentum. You don't want to be trying to roll it up the hill. You're not going to get a very big snowball trying to push it up the hill. So make sure the first one that you buy is a good one. Well, I appreciate you joining me if you have any questions about this, just leave a comment below. Leave a question in the comments, and I'll come back around and I'll look, at these comments. And if there's anything here that I can help you with, I'm happy to do it. I've learned a lot from buying and selling land, and I don't mind passing along the things that I've learned. So if you have specific questions, ask them, and I'll do the best I can to answer them. So I'll see you right back here again in another week for the next episode of HuntStand's Deer Dirt.